Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. I'm your host, Amanda. Today's episode is extra special. We are interviewing my sister, Hayley. She shared a lot of vulnerable and raw moments from her What Now experiences throughout her life. You'll hear a bit about her marriage and then subsequent divorce, how she's raising two kids on her own and taking care of her family despite all of her many career changes and the ups and downs along the way. I'm so grateful that she came on and was willing to share her story with us. I think everyone will get a lot of good insights from her about taking care of your mental health and remembering to climb out of the hole, no matter how dark you might be or how difficult a situation might seem. There's always a way out, and there's always something you can do to get help. And I hope you enjoy Hayley's story and learn a lot from her. I know I did. So I won't take up too much time, but without further ado, I think we should get into the episode. Please enjoy. Hi, everybody. I'm here with my guest, Hayley Reed. She is my sister and the best woman I know living here in Tennessee. She's currently working in two different places and killing it at both. She's at Belmont University in the study abroad office, and we are also going to discuss her amazing career at Tupperware and her incredible sales skills online and in person. She's also a powerhouse running her own family, and she's got two beautiful, funny, and amazing kids. My niece and nephew, Jackson and Mackenzie, and I think what is it, 4 pets now in the house?
Yes.
You've got the second largest.
Yeah.
It's the second largest circus in our family. Yeah. After our brother.
So true.
Who's got 6 pets and 5 chickens. So it's quite a mess.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
I'm like barely hanging on with just Dirk. So
I don't know. Dirk's weighs enough for all of them.
I think he weighs the same amount as all of Jackson's pets combined. Something
right.
like that. Good Lord. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for being here, Hayley. It's an honor to have you. I'm so excited to dive into your story and your career path and all the lessons that you've learned along the way, and any fond memories or advice you may have for other people that are going through similar experiences as you. And it's just an absolute pleasure to have you here. Welcome to What Now?
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So for my guests who may not know who you are, I know a few of my friends have met you in the past, but if you could give us just a little bit of background story on your upbringing and where you grew up and how you ended up moving back to Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I feel like I'm older than your other guests, so I feel like I have some more years on me, right? Some more moving around that I've done. So I was born in Nashville, a long, long time ago, and I grew up here till I was in right before summer of 3rd grade. And my mom was getting married, and so we moved to Chicago. And so I ended up growing up in Chicago, like really growing up in Chicago. We were there within the same couple of towns through high school. And then, so, mom, dad, 3 more siblings come along, all of that good stuff. But I was there until I graduated high school, and it was always my dream to go to the University of Tennessee. And so I went there my freshman year. Yes, go Vols, always. So I went there my freshman year, but turns out it's really expensive to go to school out of state. And so I decided I needed a little less expensive of a path through college. And so I went back in state to Eastern Illinois University. And I spent the next 4 years there, 3.5 years there. I had originally planned to, when I was at UT, I had gone in as an accounting major, but when I went to Eastern, I switched majors to, the technical term is family and consumer sciences, but the idea was I was getting a degree that had a concentration in hospitality management. Growing up, I always thought the Opulent Hotel was really cool, and for whatever reason, I wanted to work in hotels. I wanted to know how they tick, all of the things, and so I got my degree in that. And so when it was time, when I was getting close to graduation, I was like, okay, well, I think I want to live back in Nashville. My grandparents were here at the time, my mom's parents, and my friends and I would drive down a lot on weekends during the summer. Just we would come visit because it was about a 5 hour drive from Eastern to Nashville. And so we would visit all the time. And so when it was time for me to get my internship, I only looked in Nashville because I was like, well, I feel like this is where I want to go when I graduate. And so I got an internship here the summer of 2003 with Marriott. And I graduated in December of 2003, moved in with my grandparents and started a job at a hotel near the airport called Spring Hill Suites, which is also a Marriott. So I worked for Marriott. I worked there for just under 9 years. And in that time of those 9 years, I was doing the normal thing, like, trying to
Yeah.
find a career path, meeting people. I had a friend of mine move down. We got an apartment, all of that kind of stuff. And along the way, I met a boy and we fell in love.
Yes.
And the product of that love was those two wonderful children you were talking about earlier. And so they were born in 2007. We got married
Oh
in
my gosh.
2006. I know. They're old. They're
They're
juniors in high school.
the
I can't
ages,
even.
it's wild. I know. I
Yeah.
remember getting to meet them when they were what, like a year and a half-ish, maybe
Yeah.
two?
They were little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Little toddlers.
now they're walking and talking
I
toddlers,
know.
and
Now we're
it's creepy. It's
doing
weird.
college visits and it's weird. Like I just told you
Yeah.
my path, like, thinking about like, okay, so I went to college, I did this, and like we're doing all that same stuff,
Is it
what do
yeah.
you want to study? Like where do you want to go? And
This is what I
oh
did. Yeah. Are they getting
yeah.
overwhelmed with the application process? Because I don't know if it's gotten any easier.
So we don't have any applications. We've just been
Yeah.
doing visits and like ACTs, PSATs, things like that. So just
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of dipping their toes into the testing and finally, realizing their GPA matters and all of that kind of stuff. But excited about the future, very much
Oh,
excited about the
good.
future. And, you
Good.
know, so it's been good. But, so yeah, so we got married and it was, for lack of a better word, it was not the best situation. And without going into a ton of detail, but I had a moment in my thing, and I will mention this because it's important to me because it's big.
Right.
I had a moment where I thought to myself that I can go through anything. I can put up with anything. But the last thing I want is I do not want this relationship to be what my children think that relationships are supposed to be like. I didn't want my son to grow up thinking you should treat women this way. I didn't want my daughter growing up thinking she should be treated this way. I wanted them to be healthy and powerful. And I decided that I could do that better single, even if it meant I never met anybody for the rest of my life. Like, hopefully I do, but it was just one of those where it was like, this is not healthy. This is not good. And so as soon as I sort of realized that I had that moment, I was good. I was at peace. I didn't regret my decision. I haven't regretted it for a moment. So we went through a divorce. The kids turned 4,
Mm-hmm.
just before the divorce was final. They had turned 4. And so for the last, 12, going on 13 years, we have been doing it just the three of us, with ups and downs. But so the divorce then led to, I was working at the hotel. And so at that point I had been at the hotel. This would have been right at probably the 8-year mark that I got divorced,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm getting my math right. And so I was at the hotel for about another year. But I realized that it wasn't working, the schedule. I still loved the job. I loved what I did. I had an amazing, amazing group of people that I worked with. But hotels are 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I can't do this. Like, I would work. My boss was amazing with my schedule, as a, co-parenting and all that. My boss was great. But what was happening is I'd have plenty of time with the kids, but then on the off weeks when I didn't have the children, I was working nonstop. And so I didn't have anything else. It was just work and kids. Like I had no time to do anything. And I felt like it wasn't healthy for me. And so I had the luxury of being able to slowly search for a new job because I was not in a, position that I had to find a new job. I just knew this
Right.
was the path I wanted to take. And so I took my favorite parts of my hotel job, which were back to that accounting that drew me a long time ago, the bills, the finances, and all that kind of stuff. And so I
Mhm.
started looking for jobs in financial things. I probably applied to 50 some places. I had a
Oh,
little notebook.
easily.
Yeah, I had a little notebook that told me exactly where I had applied, what I had applied for. So if they actually called
Yep.
me back, I would
I
know.
had a spreadsheet. I had to show it to
Yep.
Leslie every couple of months to prove I was trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
So
you,
I
Mom,
had,
but it's true.
but yeah, so I had this
Yeah.
little thing going, so I knew what I was doing. And so I had applied to a couple of colleges, local schools, because, I was like, well, if I stay there and the kids could get a discount. Now,
Mhm.
this is, back then they were 5, so they were in
Yeah.
kindergarten. So it was a long time before this was really going to matter, right?
No, but
Um,
worth the investment. Yeah.
right. So I was like, okay, let me look, I'll see. And so I had applied for a job at Belmont and I was just kind of like, I don't know, we'll see. So they were one of the only ones. They were not the only one, but one of the few that called me back. And I will say, like, I've told people this story before, but like, when you go from working in a hotel environment where I had worked my way up from the nighttime third shift front desk person to the assistant general manager,
Hmm.
um, when you get an interview and somebody asks you, tell me about the most difficult interaction you've ever had, I'm like, pick a day of the week. Like,
I was about to
I,
say, I was going to save that question for after this. It was like, all right, what's the juicy hotel story that you can say about Marriott without getting sued by Marriott? Like, what happened?
right? So, but it
It's
was
got
just
to
so
be
funny.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, so I took the interview. The job itself was exactly what I wanted, but like after talking to them, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way. Like this job is not going to be able to pay what I needed to pay, and I had a budget. I needed to make a certain amount, and the stars aligned, and they called me back, and we negotiated, and they paid me. So it was a lateral move financially, but I
Hmm.
gained back so much time. So I think I did the math back then, and I was gaining back about 30 to 40 hours a month of my own personal time by
That's
switching.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
so, with the flexibility also at Belmont, I started being able to go on all the, I could do, I don't think I've ever missed a field trip besides like before I left Marriott. Like, I
Right.
never missed
Yeah.
a field trip, I never missed a moment. I was able to be PTO president for fourth and fifth grade for my kids. And so I really, really got to be a part of their lives because of that switch. And so it was a big, big shift for us.
Yeah.
There was less stress. My phone wasn't going to ring in the middle of the night. And then they got to see me do things. So, I traveled. So you said I worked in the study abroad, or I work in the study abroad office. And so when I was hired, I was told we don't travel, we just send the students abroad. 6 months later, I got a new boss who said, you can't tell people what it's like if you've never been there yourself. And so, other
Of
than the
course.
last couple of years, I've gone to at least one new country every year. And it's been an
Yeah.
amazing, amazing moment for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hmm.
Tell us about your job title, where the division you do work in. I said study abroad, but
Hmm.
what exactly does that entail? Because I'm sure it looks a little bit different at each university. And how have you grown or learned to, I guess, appreciate your work-life balance better? Because I'm sure a lot of people, like especially me, like I was, as you know, I was with the government for 10 plus years,
Hmm.
and I had none. Like I maybe came back to Nashville 3 times in that total 10 years, and maybe
Yeah.
saw my parents for either Thanksgiving or Christmas. It was rare that I could do both, kind of a
Both.
thing.
Yeah.
So I missed a lot out of our childhoods, like
Yeah.
our your secondary,
Yeah.
your second phase of your life, pretty much. Because like I don't even think I saw the kids unless we were all on a family vacation, like
Probably
purposefully
not. Yeah.
kind of a
Hmm.
thing. So how did that go transitioning into Belmont, and what exactly is your title, and how do you use that every day and stuff?
Yeah. So, um, I started out as what they call at Belmont, a budget manager. So
Okay.
it's like I was in charge of the money again. So back to the things I loved, at Marriott. So I was accounts payable, accounts receivable, managing the finances for the Office of Study Abroad. So everything finance. And then when I started, it was very, very small. So when I started, there were just three of us, the two,
Okay.
myself, another full-time person, and then a couple months after me, they hired a full-time director. Prior to us three being full-time in the Office of Study Abroad, it had been like a couple of part-time people, a faculty member who like was the dean of their college, but also in charge of study abroad, but also in charge of something else. So like Belmont was like, we're focusing on study abroad. And so they put a full team in. And so when I first started, it was, I mean, I kid you not, it was, some days were boring because after
Sure.
the hustle and bustle of the hotel, there were days when I'd get everything done and be like, there's nothing to do. It is not like that anymore.
Yeah.
But
No towels to fold.
yeah, no towels to, right? So I would so then I took on some new responsibilities. And so at one point I was running our entire process for our what we call our short-term faculty-led students. And so those are
Okay.
short trips that are usually 2 to 4 weeks over May, June, and July, and spring break. And it's usually faculty taking a group of students abroad. And so I became in charge of that entire process for a while until the process, until we just grew too big and we started having to hire new people. And so I let go of that side of the process, went back to just focusing on finances. And my title now is assistant director, but it's like assistant director slash finance director for study abroad. So I'm the assistant director is like plain title, but if you have to add a little to it, it's the assistant director of finance for study abroad.
Perfect.
And
Okay.
so I still am in charge of all the money. Basically, still doing roughly the same thing. I've taken more things off my plate than I've put on recently, but that's just because our numbers are growing. That as our numbers grow, my quantity of work within the finances grows, right? So when I first started, we sent abroad like 200 students for the year, and now we're up to almost 1,000 for the year. So I'm in charge of all of the finances for, all those students. And so it really is budgets and figuring out like what it's going to cost to take this trip and how, many students and how do we make it work for we're trying to keep the costs down, but we know
Yeah.
travel's not cheap. So
No,
it's
yeah.
really all money, lots of Excel spreadsheets. I love Excel spreadsheets.
Well, that's perfect
Um,
job for you.
it really is. So yeah, so I've been doing that and I love it. Like I still love it. Like any
Mhm.
job, it has its good days and its bad days. But overall, I like the job. I like working at Belmont, and I like the
Yeah.
life that it's given me.
Perfect. I think that's really good. It sounds like you're in a, at least maybe not necessarily more stable, but at least a flexible place that sounds like it gives you a lot of
Mhm.
opportunities for growth. Let's dive into that a little bit. How does the day to day compare to any previous jobs that you've had? Do you have you had particular obstacles at Belmont or moments where you've had a like, what do I do now, and how do I figure this out? Or did you have any overlap with the personal life? Because I know that even though the divorce was finalized, home stuff didn't really change. You were still balancing a
Mhm.
lot to take care of the kids. So how did you handle times of stress while you were at Belmont? And can you elaborate a little bit more about
Yeah.
truly living the single mom Wonder Woman life?
So, I feel like the younger years of my children, so also my younger years at Belmont, are kind of a blur in some ways. Um, I sometimes look back and I'm like, how did I do all that? Right? Like, how was I PTO president and all the things. And so, one of the things I got lucky with at Belmont is that we moved into a new building. And when we did that, I mean, I could tell you folklore of what it's like under a previous president at Belmont with like, space. But basically, I was in a very high traffic area, which makes it very hard to concentrate on numbers and things. And so I was given the opportunity to work from home at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. Before that was really even a thing like it is now. Now I
Hmm.
work from home. I'm home 2 days a week permanently. And so I would, I would take a lot of work home with me for a while, but I was really good at because I was the numbers person, when we would finally get to a point where it would be like, we can't keep functioning, we would go to Belmont, and there's a process like anywhere else for hiring new people. And one time we hired somebody, and I said, I was looking at her job description, and I was like, I don't know to feel good or bad about the fact that you took my job, split it in two. She has half and I still have a full plate. Like, how was I doing all of that, right? I remember being stressed. I remember being worn out. I remember a lot of late nights and things like that. And so, it was rough, but overall, the benefits always outweighed the costs of it, and the atmosphere. I loved the people, loved the people I worked with. Like, it's been amazing. I've been lucky in that in all my careers. And so I just kind of, I don't even know, I functioned through it somehow. I survived it. I think because I enjoyed the job, it helped when the pressure would get tough. Because I enjoyed the people, and some of them don't even work there now, but they're some of my best friends, and that helped. When you're working with people that you all care, and you all are trying to help each other, like, I think it makes a huge difference on that. And so most recently, in the last, it's 2023, so 2021, my previous boss left in 2021, and we went through a pretty tumultuous year. Actually not something I can talk about because it is not
Right.
still finalized. Things are still happening on that front with one of the people involved, but it was not a good year for me, 2022, and everybody quit, but I was like, I can't quit. Like, the benefits are great. My kids are now, at this
They're
point, they
getting,
were sophomores, and I was like, they're so close to high school. Like, I can't leave Belmont now. So we had an office of 5, and 4 of them quit. And then I actually went to human resources and was like, basically just, I don't know what to do. And I walked out of that meeting and was told that I needed to be on emergency FMLA. So I was off all last summer on emergency FMLA, and it was a really, really hard time for me. I know it affected my children, but I've worked really hard to pull myself out of that, and come out the
yeah,
other side probably healthier than I've ever been, way more balanced, way more, um, I'm way better at leaving the work at work, right? I've gotten way better to where I'm like, you know what? No, I was in that meeting and HR said, I don't need to do this. So I'm not doing this. If it's not done in my 40 hours, it's not done. Like, I'm not doing it. Um, and so I've just gotten better at boundaries so that I can um, make my time with the kids, my time at home, much more intentional.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And I'm sure it's hard if you're the lead parent right now in their
Mm-hmm.
lives. They're watching your every move, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
people have said that all the time, and you may have remembered when they were little, like, they repeat everything you do or say because they want to be either
Mm-hmm.
just like you, or they admire you so much as their mother. So I can only imagine how hard it is to try and do right by yourself, by your job, by your children, but then also kind of protect them from
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you might be feeling too. And it's, you don't want to
Yeah.
upset them, but you also don't want to lie to them either. So I can only imagine that that's a tough thing to balance, especially when you're a team of one at the office. I didn't realize it had dropped. I remember that you had
Huh?
talked about when the first couple of people had been let go, but I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm a terrible sister. I don't remember that it went down to just you. Is it
No,
still just you, or did they hire?
no. We got a new boss, and he hired a bunch of people while I was gone on FMLA, and I absolutely adore them. I could
Wonderful.
not
Okay.
have asked for better people
Yeah.
to have been hired when I didn't have any type of say in it. They're amazing. And so it's just a much better office culture, office feeling. I'm getting
Yeah.
help in some areas, some support with my work in ways that I haven't gotten in previous years. And so it's been great. And I think there was a lot going on at Belmont prior to that FMLA, but my mom had also been diagnosed with cancer. My kids had some other things going on. that were really affecting them. And I really needed to be, I was trying to be strong for everybody. And I think eventually it was just like, I can't do it anymore. Right. Like I just broke. I was like, I'm done. But I can
Yeah.
never give up on my kids. So something else had to give. And once again, because of the benefits of working at Belmont, being able to take FMLA was a blessing to be protected and be able to do that and, be paid while I was on it. So yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think that's a massive benefit that they're able to offer that to you, especially for an extended period like that. So that's amazing that you were able to use that. And I
Well,
wish
it
it
didn't
had
even
been.
cross my mind that I
Yeah.
could use it for essentially mental health reasons, right? Like it just didn't even,
Yeah.
I didn't go into that meeting with that intent. I went in with other intents and came out with
Right.
that. And it was, it really helped me.
Yeah.
It was a tough summer trying to figure myself out and figure out what was next and all of that and how to move forward. But I did it, got on the other side of it. And again, I'm just really happy with where I am now, how I am now, all of those kind of things. So,
Right. If you are able to share,
mhm.
what are some particular tips or action steps that you took during that summer, or at least over the last year from
Yeah.
starting the FMLA? Was there a particular thing that you did, or did you establish like a
So
new routine or anything that helped you truly balance that,
I'd
or
actually
to get to
started,
a better mental place?
yeah. So I think I actually started it the year before, the summer before. So summer 2021,
Okay.
I started having trouble sleeping. And I think that it's just, you have to pay attention to your body, right? And so nobody's going to advocate for you more than you, right? Like that's what we try to teach our children to advocate for themselves. I try to have them advocate for themselves, and I come in as mom when that's not working and they're not being listened to or something, right? But
Of
I need to
course.
teach them to advocate and listen to them, listen to their bodies, listen to what they need. And so that summer I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't sleep. I'd be up all night. Like it was the worst. And so I was like, okay, I can't sleep. So I go to the doctor and I was like, I can't sleep. And he's like, okay, let's try this. And he gives me medicine to sleep. And I was like, great, now I'm sleeping. There was an adjustment period, but okay, now I'm sleeping. So now that I can sleep again, there's still something wrong. Like I got to figure this out. Okay, so what's next? So then I went back to the doctor and I was just like, so this is where I'm at. Like started naming off certain symptoms, and we're females. It's worse during a certain time of the month and all of that kind of stuff. And so,
Right.
but it was always bad, but it was like extra bad. Bad
Hmm.
thoughts, bad, just bad. And
You mean like
so
invasive or
invasive, yeah.
intrusive thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Intrusive thoughts, things where I was starting to get to a point where, like, when you're like, nobody loves you, right? Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. But then part of you is like, the rational side is still like, okay, you're being ridiculous. People love you.
Right.
Like, there's plenty of love. So I was getting to the point that I knew
Mhm.
the rational side of me wasn't going to be able to keep up with the non-rational side. And I was like, I can't. Like, I can't. Like, I have children. I can't do this. I've got to figure something out. And so I went back to the doctor and he's like, okay, let's try this. And so I'm still on the sleeping medicine. Then he puts me on a mood medicine. So he puts me on that. And I was like, okay, great. And so I go on that for a month and it comes up to that time of the month again because it's just the hormones are so much worse. And so I'm like, okay, so it was better, but it still wasn't great. He's like, okay, let's adjust it. And I was like, okay. So we adjusted the medicine. And I still think in some ways that doing that saved my life because um, shortly after we got all of that balanced is when I found out my mom had cancer.
Hmm.
And then shortly after that is when something happened with my children. Not with me, but something big happened in their lives that I was like, holy crap, how did I where have I, like, I got to protect them. How do I've failed. Like, what have I done? And I don't know that I would have made it out of all that while all this other stuff's happening that I can't talk about at Belmont in the background, right? So, like,
Right.
everything's coming to a head all at the same time. And I'm just like, I can't. Like, what am I going to do? So I think that I truly saved my life by paying attention to my body and advocating and going to the doctor and being like, I'm not fine. Like, I need help. Like, we got to figure something out. I'm still on that medicine. I'm still on I used to call them my crazy pills. Now I just call them my happy pills. But because they
Yeah.
kept me from being crazy. But I'm no longer on the sleeping medicine because I regulated the other, because I advocated for myself at work, because I did other things in my life, that I was able to like go off one of the medicines, right? And I still sleep great. Like I sleep great now.
Yeah.
I used to have entire days I didn't want to get out of bed. Like I don't have that anymore. So just really big changes that I think changed my life, but it's really because I paid attention and I knew that it wasn't normal. I knew it wasn't normal for me. And I knew that, again, my kids are my lifeline, right? Like, so they deserved better. And I needed to be better for them. And I knew I could be, but I knew I wasn't going to get there without some help. And so I sought out the help I needed to get better, so that I could be a better version of myself.
I love that. And I'm so incredibly proud of you for being, despite being in a hole or at least in a dark place, maybe mentally and emotionally, you had
Mm-hmm.
the awareness to go, okay, I don't know what's wrong with my body, but my body's off. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
having, I guess, sometimes just the awareness to pay attention, but also the humility to go, I don't know what's going on and I'm not fixing
Mm-hmm.
it the right way because it's still happening. It's still occurring. Like whatever solutions I'm coming up with, coping mechanisms I'm using, it's not enough, or at least it's not
Yep.
the correct one to address this particular solution or particular
Mm-hmm.
problem. So I'm very proud
Yeah.
of you for, um, again, like you said, advocating for your own health, advocating for your own body. I think that's also one of the biggest lessons I've learned too, not necessarily for medical reasons, but at least career wise. Like the only person watching out for yourself or for your future truly is you at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day. Like you can have friends that'll support you. You can have managers that'll
Yeah.
pay attention. You can have a doctor that'll give you something, but whether or not it's
Mm-hmm.
actually working or going the right way, it's up to you
Mm-hmm.
to decide, no, this is not it or not. So I'm very
Yeah.
proud of you for sticking with it and not giving up on yourself because it's,
Well,
I'm sure, hard.
it is. And I will say there was a moment, I don't know when, months ago now, but when I
Yeah,
realized, like, again, everything I do, I was, I don't, we're not all free from mistakes, right?
of
But
course.
I had, again, so some of the stuff that had happened with the kids kind of caught up with them mentally and emotionally. And,
Yeah,
so we were exploring options on ways to make them healthier. And, there's always the option of like, taking medicine, going to therapy, and all the things. And so one of my children had decided on, they were already doing therapy, but they had decided on medicine as well. And I was surprised because a previous conversation it was like, no, I don't want to take medicine. I want to do that. And then we're in the doctor's office and they're old enough to speak for themselves. And,
sure.
they were like, no, I want medicine. And so when we left, I was like, what changed your mind? And they said, it was you. Like, I know you take medicine and I know you're way better than you were a year ago. Like, so
Yeah.
if it can help you and make you this good, then I want it to be able to help me too. And like, so it was a moment where I was like, okay, so
Oh, that's gonna make
I,
me cry.
I know. So as a single mom, I struggle with like, how much do I tell them? Because I don't have a person, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
all my
There's
married friends have people. Like, I don't have a people. I don't have a husband. I don't have a partner. I don't have any of that. But so I have to depend on friends. I have to depend on family,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
sometimes it just lives with me, right? Like I depend on myself. And so there's a balance between what do I tell the kids, what do I not. You can't hide everything.
Right.
And I knew I wasn't hiding it, but to know that they saw the difference in me from having chosen that path, right? Like,
Right.
and it was like, yeah, I mean, your mental health is key. Like, you cannot do anything else if your mental health is not in the right space.
No, definitely not. And you can't grow or you're not you're it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you're metaphorically you're closing off other opportunities or other
Mm-hmm.
other things that are right in front of you, even if it's just simple day-to-day tasks, you won't be able to see it, right? Like you're covered in
Right.
that fog. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's incredible that the kids were able to see that and not worry about what would happen to
Mm-hmm.
them if they were to try it. Like it's great
Mm-hmm.
that I'm very glad that your experience was a positive one. I know it's not always a positive one with
Right.
different types of medications for different medical ailments. So I'm really glad that that's worked out for them and that they are now on a positive path as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's
Mm-hmm.
working for them too. So that's incredible. And that's really good. Well, from the downer side, do you want to go to the positive side and start talking?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about your third life change with
Right.
Tupperware. You've started building this amazing sales dynasty with this other company, and you've been
Mm-hmm.
able to balance this job and Belmont. So, if you don't mind telling the listeners a little bit more about what
Yeah.
what sparked the need for the second income, or what
Mm-hmm.
made you think that this would be a good idea, or that you needed to take it on, and then how has that process expanded for you, and kind of like your growth trajectory through Tupperware and what you've done with that. Because I know you went to a conference recently and you got to
Mm-hmm.
speak there. So like you're getting more non-sales related stuff. Like you are getting access to other leadership and
Mm-hmm.
training and speaking engagements, which is huge, like you're talking at national convention. So that's a really big deal. So if you don't mind telling us
Yeah.
about that.
Um, so, again, single mom here. So about 4 years ago, around the fall of 2019, I started thinking, I really need a second job. I need something else. But because Belmont paid the bills, I own my home, all the things like we're good, but I didn't have a lot of extra. I didn't feel like we could go on vacations unless we were blessed enough to go on vacation with family. Like I never had money to do it myself, just me and the kids. Um, I would have to like, can we really afford to eat out once this month? Or maybe I could take the kids out, but I just won't eat, right? And like, so I was just really having to pinch the pennies and I was just kind of over it. But because I was a single mom, I knew the value of the time with my kids and I didn't want to give it up. I didn't want to like, I didn't need it so bad that I needed an hourly job where I punched a clock, right? So I was like, what can I find that's flexible? So, it was kind of in my mind. Um, and then in December of 2019, I went to a holiday shop with my mom. One of those, there are millions of the craft fairs and shows that happen this time of year.
Right.
And I went with my mom, and across the way, I saw what is a classic Tupperware toy. It's called the Shapo. And my niece was turning 1 the following January, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's got to have that. Like, that's the perfect gift for a 1-year-old. It's nostalgic. Nobody else is going to get this baby this for the 1-year birthday. Like, I'm buying this.
Hmm.
So I walk into that booth, and I got talked into a Tupperware party. Um, and so, I had a thing where I had done like a jewelry party earlier that year. And so maybe this was kind of why it was in my head. So I had a
Sure.
friend who was like, I have a jewelry party, or a friend had a jewelry party. I went to it and I booked a party off her party. And so when the lady did my party, she was kind of talking about her business. And I was just like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe I could do that. But like, two problems are wrong with this plan here. First of all, I barely wear jewelry. Well, I wear way more now than I used to, but back then
Sure.
I did not. I barely wear jewelry. How am I going to sell it to people? And the second problem is the buy-in for that company was just huge. And I was like, I can't, like, I just can't. I can't do that. So I think that's where it was in my head. And so when I had my party in January of 2020, the Tupperware lady was here, drove up in her Tupperware car,
Yeah.
and she did her whole thing. And so she talked about the business, right? And so I always say she talks about 4 things. I've heard her story a handful of times now. And like, she always says 4 things. She says you can earn money, you can do it on your own schedule, you can earn free vacations, and you can drive free cars, right? Because she had one in the driveway. And I was like, okay, let's be real. I'm not earning a free vacation. I'm not driving a car that says Tupperware. Not because I wouldn't, but because that's not, only the best can do that. Like, I'm not doing that. But you've got me intrigued. Like, I love Tupperware and I can make my own schedule and earn money. This is maybe speaking to me. And so
Yeah.
a couple of days after my party, I actually had gone to like a coffee shop called Just Love here in Spring Hill. And I was sitting there doing some stuff and I was like, okay, I really need to figure this out, right? It's January. That's when everybody's trying to figure out their New Year's resolutions and all the things. And so I was like, I really need this job. I was like, but I don't know. I was so nervous. I was like, you want me to sell stuff? Like, the whole reason I love my job is because I don't have to talk to anybody, right? At Belmont. Like, that was the whole thing. The best parts about the hotel job, minus working with the staff, was the parts I did in the back office, not having to deal with customers, right? I'm like, I can't, like, I don't like to be seen. I don't like to do this. But something about the Tupperware, I don't know. I just was like, I'm going to try it. So I like started a text to her, and it was that moment where it's like, you just need to hit send and be done. Like, just hit send. And it's so funny now because to be on the other side, to like receive that type of text or somebody say that kind of thing to me, it's so funny to know what it feels like on the other side. But so I text her and was like, I mean, maybe tell me a little more. And so she's just like, you can do this. The parties we booked at yours will be yours. You can kickstart your business this way. Like, it'll be fine. And I was like, okay, but like, really, I'm not a salesperson. Like, I am not. And she's like, just go to your first party. You'll be fine. So I go to my first party. I think I have to know everything. So I've got no cards because you get, like, when you join, the sign on for Tupperware was much more reasonable. And such a great value. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. So like, you buy this kit, and I'm like, okay, but if I suck and I like stop doing this, she's like, you get to keep the kit. And I was like, okay, so this is worth it. I get, I was getting like $600 worth of Tupperware for $100. Like, at the very least, I've got a lot of awesome Tupperware. So there's really no harm, right? Like, there's no harm. So I go to my first party and I've got a note card for every single piece that's in my kit. Because I think I have to know it all, because that's how I am, right? You have to be prepared. And so at Belmont, the joke has always been, I'll do anything you want me to do, just don't make me public speak, because I hate public speaking. So I just don't like it, because I think my biggest fear is somebody in there is gonna know more than me, and I'm gonna say something wrong, or like, I don't know at all, and they're gonna ask a question I can't answer, right? Like, those are my biggest fears. So anyways, I started doing Tupperware. It was 2020, so I started just before COVID. And then COVID happened, and so everything was online. Everybody was at home. Turns out I was pretty decent at a Facebook party and like figuring it out, because I'm super organized. And so it was really easy for me to work both jobs during COVID, because everything was online, even Belmont, right? Like, it was all online. And so I actually, started seeing some success. And so I was 10 months in when I was promoted to director, which there's other levels, like different direct sales have different kind of things, but basically there's a certain level where you kind of just promote based on sales and things. But to become a director, you have to hit these goals, but then you have to sign a box, like check a box that says, like, yes, I want to do this, which basically means like, yes, I want to lead a team. Yes, I want to be involved. Yes, I'm going to participate in director meetings. Like, there's more responsibility to it, right? I could have just kept on going just normal, but I decided, like, no, I want the next step. So I became a director. And then a few months later, I actually earned one of those free vacations that I had heard about. Never thought I would, but I earned a trip for me and the kids, paid for by Tupperware, to go to Disney. And so it was amazing. And so I earned that in 2021. And then a month later, I earned my car. So I do drive the Tupperware car, and I've been driving it for almost 3 years now. And it's just crazy, because I would have never thought I was that person, right? And that was like the first, year and a half that I was in. And it's been 4 years of just opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And I have been able to meet people that all sorts of new people. I've had ways, like, this whole, like, I sell Tupperware. It doesn't even feel like I sell it when I have a party. Like, it's just, I have so much fun that I'm really just sharing. I feel like I'm sharing. I'm not selling. Like, I'm sharing with people my love of Tupperware and all the ways it can change your life. And like, I cook better now because of it, because I have all the best tools in my kitchen. And what's amazing, and I think has sort of played into this, is that, like, so I'm a single mom with almost 2 full-time jobs because of the amount of effort I put into Tupperware. But I can still make really good meals because I also have Tupperware to make them with. So like,
Yeah.
I'm coming home and making these things that, other people spend hours on that I can do in 30 minutes. Or it's like, oh, you guys want a cake tonight? I got you. And we have a cake in 10 minutes. Like there's just, it's impacted our lives in other ways than just we have more money, right? Like we
Mhm.
earned a free trip to Disney. We've since been back one other time. I went back for just an adults only trip recently. Like I've been able to take a couple little trips on my own, take the kids places. So
Yeah.
I've done everything I set out to do when I joined. But I've done more. So like you said, with that conference that I did, it's funny. So at Belmont, I say, I'll do anything you ask except public speak. I don't really get a choice in Tupperware. I get voluntold a whole lot to do certain things. And I had called I had called my business leader, and like she answered the phone and her husband's like, "Congratulations." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "I have not told her yet." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" And they're
Oops.
like, "So you've been chosen to, do that. You've been chosen uh to train at Jubilee, which is Tupperware's yearly national convention." And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah. And you know how like I talk about when I trained in a little side room, like you're training on the main stage first day. And I was like, okay. And like, it was just such a big deal. And I
Yeah.
was a nervous wreck. But it was an amazing opportunity and I would not trade it for the world. Like it was a great opportunity. And so Tupperware for me has been a chance to show the kids, like to be able to do more with the
Mhm.
kids,
Yeah.
but also show them, what it's like to do something you love and like how do we balance all the things and like we still have plenty of family time. I'm really intentional with my schedule and making sure that there's at least one thing every week, even if it's just a dinner and a movie or a dinner and games, but like we make sure we do the tree lightings and we do all like I still block my schedule and I can do that because I'm my own boss at Tupperware, right? So I already have the Belmont flexibility, but
Yeah.
now because of, being my own boss, I don't have to request off time. I just leave my calendar open. So it's really helped
Right.
us a lot.
And are you still doing, now that COVID's kind of dissipated, I won't say it's gone, but
Mm-hmm.
dissipated a bit, are you doing the in-person events again and the online
All the
parties,
time.
or is it a mix and match, or
So
how do
I'll
people find
do
you if they wanted a party? Yeah.
so I will do online parties. Um, but I find that post COVID, in person parties are just better. People like to see the Tupperware, they like to touch it. I can't really cook you a meal that you get to taste if I'm doing it on a computer, right? But if
Yeah.
I'm in front of you, I get to make you some of my favorites. I get to show you how it all works. And it's a fun time for people to get together. And so I have started, I've had another sort of like opportunity to grow within Tupperware recently because the person that recruited me 4 years ago, she just promoted in March to become the business leader of our company. And so she had to move to Arizona. And since she moved, that left
Wow.
me as sort of the highest ranking person for our company, but in this area. And so, I schedule all our bingos and try to schedule the training events and all the different things. And so I feel like I've stepped more into a leadership role because of that opportunity. So it's been amazing to be able to do things a little. It's given me like new life in it, right? Like, and I've just
Sure.
been able to. I don't know. I feel like she changed my life 4 years ago when she offered me the opportunity. When all she was doing is what she's supposed to do, right? Like that's what we train everybody to do. But I feel like she changed my life, and so I keep. My goal is just to give that back and hopefully change somebody else's life. Like it's not just about the money because this has been so much more than money for me.
Right. Yeah. No, I got a lot of friends in my neighborhood. We should schedule one and throw a party when it's a bit
Yes.
warmer. I have a really nice backyard, as you know, so there's plenty of
Yeah.
space out on the deck, and you could like do a whole platter, or at least like
Mm-hmm.
buffet style of here's the item to eat, here's all the
Yes.
tools we use to make it, or things
Yep.
like that. So you can do a display and taste party or something like
Yes. I
that.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
No,
I think that
I
would be
enjoy
a good
it. I
tool.
really
Mhm.
enjoy it. So,
No, that's amazing.
and
And what about the kids? Do they ever go to the parties with you, or have they ever
so
tried to sell something?
Jackson, when we first started, and we were online, Mackenzie was my helper. She was in a lot of the lives with me. She did a ton of stuff with me when we were all stuck at home with COVID. She's a little bit more like, I don't want to be in front of the camera anymore. So she's not a big fan of being a part of the
Sure.
camera. But Jackson, he'll go to shows with me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm, sometimes I'm doing what we call prize patrol, which is where I'm just showing up at somebody else's party to help support them, help them book parties, help them shower the hosts with gifts. So I say I show up like Santa Claus or Ed McMahon,
Right.
and Jackson will ride along with me. Like, hey, you want to ride along? Like, because most of them are, 30 minutes to an hour away. And so, like, you want to ride, and he'll ride with me, and I'll go in, do the prize patrol, come back out. We'll usually get dinner on the way home or something. So it gives
Yeah.
us a chance to spend time together. But recently, we were, I forget where we were, but he's like, Mom. I was like, what? He's like, I'm really grateful for Tupperware. And I was like, yeah? He goes, yeah. Because, like, think about it. Like, we've done Disney, and he just started naming off, like, all these things that he knows we get to do because of Tupperware, right? Like,
Yeah.
so he's like, we've been to Disney, we're planning our next trip to Disney already. Like, you've done this, and, like, we get to go do this, and you can buy me this when I need it. Like, you're not as stressed. Like, he just names all this. So he goes, I'm just really grateful for Tupperware. I'm really glad Tupperware came into our lives. And then he's like, so the person who recruited me is now one of my best friends. And
Right.
he's like, I'm just so grateful for Melissa. Like, I'm just so glad she asked you to have a party. Like, and it's just such a cool moment for him to be
Yeah.
like, this is where we're at, right? Like, and he recognizes it. Like, this is what it's done for us. He goes, and he said, he's like, I know I give you a hard time sometimes for being gone, or I know I sometimes, make fun of you for how excited you get. Like, he didn't pull punches, but in the end, he was very much like, I'm really
Right.
grateful for this, and I know that it's really changed the way we do things. So it's been really
Yeah.
cool.
No, it's it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
very money shouldn't be everything. Like your finances
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be your ultimate goal because that can I've learned that if you're only going after the money, like it sucks the fun out of the event sometimes or like
Yeah.
it changes the art from just pure creativity back to
Mm-hmm.
a sales pitch and it's not always as enjoyable anymore. So I know it's necessary to exist in life, but it's really nice to know that you found something that isn't just a hobby, like it's a life-changing experience sometimes. And you do get to have fun with
Mm-hmm.
it too. Like, and that's what your swatshirt says, right?
Yeah, it
If you're
says
watching the
thanks
video, you can
Tupperware.
see, yeah, thanks to Tupperware, she got to go to Disney. Yeah,
Yeah.
with Mickey
Yep.
ears on the end.
So Mackenzie actually coined the phrase "Thanks Tupperware." It was my first year in, and the dishwasher broke, and so she came home from school, and she was just like, "Oh, did you get the dishwasher fixed?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Hmm.
$200 and 20 minutes later, like I was salty about it because it took him like
Right.
20 minutes to fix something. And I had to pay $200, and she's like, "Oh well, thanks Tupperware." And it was like a really big moment when she said it because I was like, oh yeah, we'd still be hand washing dishes if it wasn't for that because I had $200 I could spend to get it fixed, right? Like,
Look at
and so
that.
it's just been our family saying ever since, like, thanks Tupperware. Like, whenever we get to do anything, it's like, oh, thanks
Yeah.
Tupperware.
Anytime you sign
Yeah,
the check at dinner, they're like, thanks. Not
right.
thanks, mom,
Yep,
but thanks, Tupperware. Oh, that's
yep. Thanks
funny.
Tupperware. Yeah. So
Oh,
that's our
that's
little saying. So
adorable.
when we went to Disney, I had to have a thing because we wouldn't be there without it, right? Like,
Oh,
so.
yeah, and then it's additional free advertising while you're walking around in
Uh huh.
Florida too, because then I'm
Yeah.
sure because I know you have the T-shirts that say like "Ask me
Mhm.
about" and stuff.
Mhm.
Like, has that happened? Do people walk up to you because of what you're wearing, or is it
Oh
because of the
yeah.
car or anything?
Both. So I'll tell you, what was it? One time I was picking up Mackenzie from a job, and I
Yeah.
had a migraine. This is before she could drive. I had a migraine. I felt like crap. I know I looked like crap. And like I pull into the parking lot and I park and I'm just sitting there like waiting for her to come out. Like you can just, oh, I feel bad. And then all
Mhm.
of a sudden there's a knock at the window. And like, somebody wants a Tupperware catalog and wants to talk to me about Tupperware. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I can't change the fact that I look like crap, but I got to at least pretend I don't feel like crap and like,
Yeah.
have this conversation. And so all the time, especially at gas stations, like you'll have people peek around and be like, oh,
Mhm.
so do you just, put that on there for fun? Like, no, I sell it.
No,
But yeah, so I
I
do. I
feel
get
it. They
stopped
gave
for
it
my
to me.
shirt. I do. I get stopped for my shirt. I get stopped for my car, all the things. But that's the point, right? Like
Yeah,
most
sure.
people, I'm I'm only as good. My business is only as good as the amount of work that I put into it. And so it's as healthy as I am when I'm working it as hard as I can. So
Sure. No, that's straight liquid gold right there. I'm gonna turn that into the clip, I think. Yeah. But for I know we're coming up close to ending, so I want to do just a couple rapid fire questions with
yeah.
you to cover some of the lessons learned that you've shared so far.
hmm
But what would you say would be the biggest lesson or your best what now example with Tupperware? Like how has that gone for you?
Um, find something that you can be passionate about, but don't be afraid to give things a try that you don't think you'll be passionate about, right? Like there was something about Tupperware um for me that was just like, okay, I'm going to try this, right? But if you had told me 4 years ago that I would have stood up on stage talking in live in front of 1,000 people and that I'd be driving a car or that like I had earned enough money, like I just have been like, oh, there's no way. Like if you had said, okay, so by the way, this is your 4 year plan, this is what it's going to look like. Um, one, I wouldn't have believed in myself. And two, I probably would have like scared myself, right? And so it's just being able to find that passion and find something that you're willing to stretch yourself a little for. It's an old saying. People say it all the time. Like, you got to
Yeah.
get outside your comfort zone. I threw away my comfort zone when I joined Tupperware. I have no idea why I threw away my comfort zone, but I did, and it has been the best, literally the best thing for me, both professionally, personally. I see a future that, maybe it's not Belmont, maybe it's Tupperware. Like now I have goals of like, I want to be a business leader and I want to do this. And so any chance I get to train or put myself out there, now I'm like, sign me up, right? Whereas before I'd be like, oh my gosh, don't pick me. So it's just stretching yourself and believing in yourself and pushing yourself, even when you don't have anything left to give, just finding that little bit more to try to push.
Yeah, I love that. You're never gonna know unless you try, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
worst comes to worst, it doesn't work out and you try something else, right?
Yep.
There's
Yeah,
no reason
exactly.
there's no reason to stop just because you failed initially or you made a mistake the first time. Like you can always learn something from that. I think that's beautiful. So, what would you say based on everything we've talked about and your own personal experiences, what has been your greatest accomplishment thus far?
Uh, setting, being proud of the example that I have set for my kids, both the good and the bad. Um, how do you dig yourself out? It's okay to seek help. It's okay to ask for help. Um, I think those little moments where they feed it back to me when I'm not expecting it, when there's a thank you or a, well, I did this because I saw you do it. Like, it's the moment of like, okay, this validates, like, this is what I do, what I'm doing. And so for me, that's the biggest piece is like every step I take, it's not just about me, it's about what they're going to see too. And I want to make sure that I'm trying to be the best person that I can be. They constantly joke that I'm too nice, that I'm too polite. My kids are like, you would get kidnapped and the kidnappers would return you, and then you wouldn't press charges because you'd just be so grateful to them for returning you that you'd tell them thank you for returning you. And I'm just like, I mean,
That's
there's just no
extreme.
point. It is, but
Yeah.
they're just like, that's their version of like, mom, you're way too nice. And I was like, there's literally no reason not to be nice to people. Like, there just isn't.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to dissuade me from being me just because you want to make fun of me, right? Like,
Yeah.
so be true to who you are, so that not only are you happy with what you do, but like the people around you are noticing it as well.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned so far on this journey with the podcast is that when you're living inauthentically, it's going to be so much harder to be satisfied with what's going on or to find a
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling life because you're not, living in a way that's true to you and your personality and your beliefs and your morals and your goals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's devastating to be fighting against that path. So I think that's really great that even though they tease you, you stick to your
right?
guns and you continue to show up for them over and over and over again. Like, keep showing up is, I think, the greatest lesson of all that
Hmm.
you
And I
can
will tell
perform to.
you, I feel like I would be doing myself disservice if I didn't mention this once because it's all about, my
Yeah.
path in life.
Yeah.
Being self aware is really important. And a few years ago, I personally discovered the Enneagram. And I don't know if you know a lot about it, but I can't remember if we've talked about it or not
We've
before.
definitely talked about it. I can't remember what my numbers are though. I think I'm in the
Okay,
lower. I'm like either 1, 2, or 3-ish, or one wing
which I could
3
see.
something. I
Yeah.
think.
So for
So
anyone
it's been a
listening
long time.
that knows, I'm a two wing one, which means I'm a helper with a side of perfectionist. And we did it actually as a work lesson. One of my previous bosses, who I
Mhm.
absolutely adore, and so it was a huge moment for us professionally because she is a one wing two and I was a two wing one, and we would butt heads all the time. So the whole point of the Enneagram is it's how you're motivated, like what motivates you. And so she thought I was a perfectionist like her, but then sometimes it seemed like I didn't care, right? But it turns out I'm a helper, and so my perfectionism would come out when I wanted to help somebody. And if it didn't matter to me and it didn't matter to somebody I cared about, then I just didn't care as much, is the best, fast way to describe it.
Sure.
And once we learned that about each other, like we never butted heads one more time, right? But all that to say is the first time I read the description of the helper, I truly didn't think there was anybody like me. I was like, oh, whoa, there's people out there like me. Like, I'm not the only one that feels this way or thinks this way. And I wouldn't tell anybody in my office my number for like
Mhm.
2 weeks because I was almost embarrassed by it. Like, oh,
Aw.
these are my intimate thoughts of like all the things, right? And now I just embrace it. Like, this is who I am. I know my faults, but what that helps me with is it's really helped me be a better, more well rounded person. Because now that I realize, like, really realize this about myself, you know, I just want to help people. I just want to be a good friend. I just want to be a good mom. I want to be a good
Yeah.
sister, a good daughter. That's what I strive. And relationships mean everything to me. And so this is probably why Tupperware has been huge for me and worked well. Um, because when you are in business for yourself, it's all about the relationships, right? And so because I genuinely care, I'm not being inauthentic. Like I genuinely care about other people, what they're up to. I'm really good about remembering things. And so when I have repeat customers, I
Yeah.
have a tendency to be able to be like, oh my gosh, how was so and so's graduation? Or, oh, I knew you really liked red, even though I haven't seen you. Here's a gift, and it's red. Like,
Right. Yeah.
just, and it can be, a lot. But I have found some really good, deep friendships out of that. Um, and I know that I'm not always the easiest person to put up with, but I really think the fact that you being self aware is a huge piece to learning who you are, and learning about what's next is
Yeah.
knowing who you are because that will help you line up with what you want.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's the the best thing you can do, right? Actually being intentional about understanding yourself and applying it in the best way possible, with whatever tools are best suited for you as a person. So I think
Hmm.
that's great. What is your next goal? So you've rose in the ranks at Belmont, you've rose in the ranks at Tupperware. Do you have an immediate next goal or anything that you're striving for in the near future right now?
Yeah. So at Belmont, I love where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to go any higher. I just am hoping to see my kids there in 2 years, right? Um, so my goal is to stay there. I have no intentions of leaving. I love the job. I love the place. As far as Tupperware goes, someday down the line, I'd love to be a business leader. It is actually an appointed position, so it is not anything I'm ever going to apply for. I'm just hoping someday somebody will notice me and be like, we want her.
Yeah.
But my immediate goal is to, you know, it's just to keep growing my team, and earn more free vacations and more free cars and just keep
Sure.
expanding. It really truly is helping the next set of people that I meet. I said I've been doing this almost 4 years ago. I'm working an event this weekend, and it's actually the event that I met Melissa at when I bought that Shapeo toy. But now that she's moved, I'm taking over the event, and so it feels like I've come kind of full circle.
Yeah.
Because now I'm working the event that started my career in a
Your
sense,
whole
and
journey.
so it's kind of a cool thing. So I'm excited for this weekend. But my goal is to grow other people in the next year. Maybe promote a director or somebody else. Just I really want other people to experience what I've been able to experience, and I feel like that's the best way I can do it is by giving back and bringing up the next group of leaders.
Of course. No, paying it forward's massive,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that's going to depend on the continuation of the knowledge too. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an amazing goal to have. All right, Hayley, thank you so much for being on our show. We're going to wrap up here real quick. Do you have any final things you'd like to promote or any information you'd like to provide the listeners in case they want to contact you? Whatever you're comfortable sharing for people to have. I
Yeah.
will also provide Hayley's information in the show notes of the episode. So that
Awesome.
way you can check there and find her. But yeah, Hayley, anything you'd like to promote before we close out?
So I'm on Instagram as the Hayley Reed or Tupperware with Hayley Reed. So you can find me either of those. But yeah, feel free to reach out. My number is probably everywhere because of all the catalogs I've given out in my lifetime of this 4 years. So there is no secret. If you want to get in touch, I'm here. I'd love to talk. I'd love to chat. I always like meeting new people. So whether you want to talk about Tupperware or you want to talk about Belmont or you want to talk about kids, like I got you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, Hayley, I can attest. Hayley is somebody you definitely want to have in your corners. But all right, everybody, that's the end of What Now, a podcast for the lost and found. Thank you so much for joining me today, Hayley. It was an honor to have you on,
Thank you
and I'm
for
so glad
having me.
yeah, it was so great to catch up with you too and hear more, true detail about your story and everything that you've gone through and the growth trajectory that you've had has been amazing. And I'm really grateful you were able to share that with us today. But for What Now, if you have any questions, you have any other people you would like to have on as guests, you can always reach out to us at askwhatnowpodcast@gmail.com. Like, subscribe, rate us, leave a review, share with your friends, send me notes. You can leave, if you're listening on Spotify, you can always leave voicemail messages, either with comments or questions on the show. Any advice you'd like us to address, we can do that as well. But as you all know, wanderers are always welcome.